Hey folks, and welcome to this video in the Profile Builder series, where we're going to start building out our domain-specific language by adding stereotypes and constraints to our profile. Here in our Profile Builder package, we have two predefined tables to make that job a little easier. Let's start with the regular stereotype table. Now the table is of course empty, as we haven't yet added any stereotypes to our profile. Let's change that, and we'll work directly in the table. First, let's use the table to add some new model elements. In this case, we'll add 4 new ones. Now we can rename those directly in the table. So let's rename the first one Network. We'll also have a server, let's have a printer, and maybe a custom diagram. Let's have a network diagram. Now we choose which base UML terms these stereotypes apply to. So networks are going to be a type of package. Network diagrams are going to be based on object model diagrams, and the other two are based on classes. Lastly, we'll make all of these stereotypes new terms by setting that column to true for each of them. Now, if I select one of these rows and press Ctrl L to locate it in the model browser, there are all of our new stereotypes right where we expect them to be in our profile. Now, we can use these new terms immediately. For example, let's switch to our user project. If I right-click the project root, I can see all of the base UML terms, but any new terms I've added also appear in a submenu with the same name as the profile. And we'll see later how to completely change all of this. For now, if I open that menu, then I'll only see the new terms that I can add at this level, at project level. Let's add a network, and we'll call it Sample Network. If I right-click the sample network, again I can see all of the UML artifacts, and there also is the network menu. And the new terms I can add there at package level. Let's add a server, and we'll call it Alfred, because, you know, Alfred was Batman's butler and he serves things. Anyway, moving on. The next thing we might want to do is to make it easier for our users to build their networks by changing those add new menus. Now, there are several ways that we could do this. For example, there are global blacklists where we could provide a list of meta classes that are not allowed at all. Now, that would affect the menus, but also the drawing toolbars. Now, that approach might be overly constraining, and you would have to make sure that that list is complete. My preferred way is to work the other way around by providing a sort of whitelist. So these are the elements I expect you to add in this area of the model. Now that again can be done in a number of ways. In this video we'll use constraints, and in the next we'll look at how we can create our own custom add new menus. Let's switch back to our builder project. Now if I open the features for the network stereotype, in the properties tab, in that profile builder perspective, we have a tab for constraints. Now, the two relevant ones right now are owners and aggregates, both of which are comma-separated lists of base and new terms. In fact, profiling and building involves a lot of comma-separated lists, and there are multiple helpers in the profile builder to help with managing them. Aggregates means what can this element own, and owners means what types of model element can own me. Right, we'll see the difference in a few minutes. First, let's use them. I'll pin the features window open so we can see any changes immediately. Let's right-click the network stereotype, and we'll use another helper, Profile Builder, Edit Meta Classes on Property, Aggregates. Now, by the way, the menus here are written that way very deliberately because you can extend the Profile Builder, and you can use this helper on any property or indeed any tag in the model. So what does this helper do? Quite simply, it creates and manages comma-separated lists. At the top, we have tabs for the base UML terms, and then a tab for every loaded profile. By way of example, let's add the standard UML package to the list. Now let's switch to our network profile. And here we have all of our stereotypes. If the profile had structure, then we could browse that structure at the top, or we can find them grouped by type at the bottom. So here are all the terms based on class. Let's add all of them. Selections we make are applied immediately. Here in the Features window, that aggregates list is already populated. Let's now use owners, and we'll use another helper to do that one. Let's right-click the printer stereotype, and we'll select Profile Builder Stereotype Editor. This one is a little toolbox with a number of functions, one of which is also manipulating those comma-separated lists. And the four most commonly used ones are presented as tabs. And here we're looking at the owners. We'll expand the network's profile, and let's drag network into the list. And again, changes are applied immediately, so I can just close that dialog. Now let's see the effects. Let's switch to our user project. If I right-click the sample network and select Add New, only the elements in the aggregates list are presented. Notice, however, that it's simply a filter on the original menu structure. All of the elements in our profile still appear as a flat list on the networks menu. I will change that later. Let's add a printer and call it, inkjet. So what's the difference between owners and aggregates? It's actually quite simple. I can drag the existing server into a package and, of course, drag it back. It has no ownership constraints other than those imposed by the underlying UML meta model. But if I try the same thing with a printer, I can't. Remember, we set the owners property for the printer so that it can only be owned by networks. Now, there are other constraints too for things like relationships, but be careful how much you constrain your profile. Constrain it too much and your users might get frustrated. That's it for this video. In the next one, we'll look at how we can make life easier for our users by creating our own custom Add New menus.